For more on the Ebola outbreak and the rising urgency to contain it, we're joined by Stephen Morrison. He is Senior Vice President for the Center for Strategic and International Studies and Director of its Global Health Policy Center. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You know, there are these reports now that 2 Americans will be medevaced to the United States. What is the concern there as far as crossing borders now and the worry that this virus is coming into another country and the United States?
Well, we don't know all the details about the medevac to Atlanta, reportedly, to Emory Hospital. That particular facility has the capacity for containment of this type of hemorrhagic fever, which is obviously very high risk. And my guess is that this is a very exceptional moment. In Atlanta, across the street from the Emory Hospital, are the level 4 labs that have hemorrhagic fever samples there and contain them. So this is a town that's equipped, that's fitted out for doing this sort of thing. So I don't think that there's reason to reach the conclusion suddenly that by taking this step, we're putting Americans at any grave risk by bringing these 2 victims, these 2 infected individuals from Samaritan's Purse back to the United States under very controlled circumstances. I think the bigger threat that people are worried about right now that need to be reassured is the thought that someone is infected, is asymptomatic because you are asymptomatic for a period, gets on a plane, comes back to the United States, so then what happens? And there we're very reliant on the vigilance of public health officials who are looking for those who are traveling in West Africa. We're very reliant on those who are looking for symptoms and checking for symptoms. And if people are becoming symptomatic, contain them and isolate them. And the control procedures in ports of entry and in American facilities are very strong, generally. So I don't think there's a very high risk that we're going to see the Ebola outbreak carried into the territorial United States. When there were cholera outbreaks in Haiti a couple of years ago after the earthquake, we had cholera imported into the United States in much the same way, and it was contained and controlled. And I think that's a good example.
The international community is certainly on top of what's happening. Other countries, other cities are on alert. Is this on the way to becoming a major pandemic? Is there a need to be very concerned?
The outbreak in West Africa has surprised everyone in its scale, in the speed with which it spread through the region, at how far it outstripped the region and created a region-wide emergency. It has the capacity to continue to expand to neighboring and nearby states. I don't think we're looking at an epidemic that is going to globalize. I think it will not take that step because of the nature of Ebola. People that become symptomatic are so debilitated and die so quickly that they do not travel much beyond those points. They migrate within their localities in their region. But this is not like SARS. It's very important to draw the distinction between these pathogens. SARS was something that could move from Hong Kong to Toronto, spread there and debilitate the economy and shock the public health system. It's a different type of pathogen. Ebola is not the same, and I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see a continued struggle to contain and control and arrest this outbreak in West Africa over the next 3 to 6 months, and it may spread more into Nigeria or Ghana or other neighboring states, but the mobilization that's happening right now, we've crossed a threshold into an emergency response and a much higher level of effort and concern and alarm. And I think it will, over the next 3 to 6 months, it will be arrested. And I don't think this is going to become a globalized phenomenon.
We'll talk about that emergency response for a moment, because I think the reason why people are so concerned about it is, you mentioned the speed. There's no vaccine, there's no cure.
Right.
And in those areas in West Africa, they haven't been able, don't have the equipment or the tools
right.
to contain it. So what's
right.
happening now from the international community?
Okay. First of all, it's important to acknowledge Ebola is a terrifying disease, okay? So people are going to be frightened just by virtue of what a horrible thing this is. And anybody who reads anything is alarmed and frightened by it. What has to happen to arrest it? Because there have been multiple outbreaks since 1976 across Central, Eastern, and West Africa, and they burned out after a certain period of time. The procedures and steps to burn that out and arrest it are fairly clear. You have to have a public communication campaign. You have to win the trust and cooperation of people. You have to get people to allow those who are sick or those who have died to be separated and isolated and contained. You have to have contact tracing. You have to trace the exposure that those people who were contagious have had on others that they've been in contact with. And you have to have data sharing. And those capacities in West Africa, in the 3 principal countries, have been missing, which is one of the key factors driving all of this. So those capacities have to be created. And I think why people are saying it's going to take 3 to 6 months is an emergency mobilization with WHO, the World Health Organization, CDC, and others, mobilizing in partnership with these countries. They're beginning way behind this outbreak. They're playing catch up. But they have to fill a gap on those capacities. But we know what has to happen. And I believe that it will be arrested within 3 to 6 months. But it's going to be a very tough job.
All right, Stephen Morrison, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, some important information.
Thank you.